Matt Steinmetz, Darryl the Guru Johnson, Mark Willard, and Dan Dibley. Talking about Willie Mays, who passed yesterday at 93 years old. One of the greatest players of all time, if not the greatest, and somebody who is, as known and impactful an athlete this area's ever seen, probably. You would think, right?
He's the best.
Exactly.
He's the best, and you know, I imagine, am I speaking for anyone? No one in here saw him play, right?
No.
I mean, he retired in
Almost.
really.
Almost. I mean, you had the best chance.
Even as a pup.
If I close my eyes.
Well, he was born when he was 9.
Let me answer. You don't need to tell me my age.
Tim's coming in with your social.
59. No, I don't. If I close my eyes, I can remember him in a Mets uniform, but that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's interesting. So
you saw him play.
Yeah. At a time.
You're welcome.
I've done so much sort of reflecting about this in I call it 24 hours. It's only been 20, right? Wild situation yesterday for Dibs and I. This thing comes across when we've got like 3 minutes of the show left, and all of a sudden emotion is just flying through the room and on the phones and on our computers and everything. And so just a lot of reflection, and as much as everyone loves to and should talk about 660 home runs and the way he played center field and the way he ran the bases and scoring from first on a bunt, to me, anything that's like statistical baseball just takes a back seat. And I don't mean even just who he was. I mean the way he affected people. The word that keeps coming to the top of my mind when I think about this is joy, and just the joy with which he played. And I hope that this is what I take from Willie Mays. I hope for every human being listening to our voices right now that you get to have that much joy in whatever you do for a living or whatever you do on a daily basis, the joy that Willie Mays had. Because when you have that, it is very much like Steph Curry in a Warriors uniform. When you have that, you do become the Pied Piper.
Do you know you have it? Because it's a gift. And that's what I've been telling Steiny, guys. He was the same smiley guy with everybody, regardless of, do you think he knew he had it, or that was just how infectious his personality was?
I think he knew he had it, but you don't ever take it for granted, and you live your life that way, and you do it intentionally. It doesn't happen by accident. And we all think about our lives and what we try to do and who we try to be. And I try to be a certain way every day, and there are days that I'm not that. Yeah. And there are days when I'm able to do that and be that person. And, it seemed like he was more that person each and every day. But I will never forget where I was and how it all went down, because he and I were 5:54. And we've got 2 to 3 more minutes until we do he does his usual, hey, Grandy, what are you leading off with? Best of.
What are you doing at 6?
And then it's a shoot your shot. It's all you got. And so we're all clock watching in that last segment, as Steiny is at 2:08 with the backpack on his shoulder. It's a little bit of a different vibe. And I'm talking about Brandon Ayuk's contract and where it might land and what it might mean and this and that. And I'm trying to make eye contact with my partner, and he's clearly talking to them.
Yeah.
And then I see his eyes go down. And then I see an expression on his face that I don't often see, which is one of basically pre-nausea. And I was looking at him, and I'm like, Ayuk, it could be 26, it could be 28.
Right.
And, if he wants, I'm on raw money and this and that. And I'm just yammering on, waiting for him to, re-engage. And finally, I'm like, I got to stop talking, and I got to figure out what the blank is going on. And his face basically went, whiter than normal. Yeah. And then all of a sudden the breaking news sounder goes, and I'm like, what could this be?
Yeah.
And so I immediately go to my Twitter and I hit refresh and I see it. And as he's starting to talk, he can't even talk. He's like, and I was like, oh no.
2 days before the game was going.
And
I couldn't believe
God
it.
makes no mistakes, but my goodness.
I can't
Or maybe we
it.
get more time to celebrate.
Well, right. I mean, today's Juneteenth. I want to acknowledge the importance of today. And the importance of tomorrow, and how much Willie's name was already front focused, and then the man up and passes away, and it's like, I heard Charles Barkley say this. You guys played it on my way in, and
I didn't agree.
I did. Well, okay.
Death is all sad.
Of course it's sad, but I look at today more as like this is a moment where just it's time for us to express the emotion that Willie brought up in us, not necessarily sadness, because when someone has that effect on people, has that full of a life and makes it to 93, I would argue,
you won.
That's the over, if you will.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? And so it's not like that's not the right word for me, like that it's sad. It's filled with emotion that we are all ready to express. And now that's only like doubled because of the week that he left us. Because it was already his week.
No, it was.
It was already his week.
It's where he played in the Negro Leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, what a complete story.
Oldest park in America.
What a full circle deal. The guy started, he basically lit this place up when he was 17 years old in 1948. And as we get to a point where it's Juneteenth and we're going to celebrate Willie and all the other players that went through this building, and this is 3 weeks after the Negro League statistics are added to Major League Baseball, and it was almost like, I wonder, I don't know this, but wonder if Willie just put his feet up yesterday and went, we did it. You know, like what a great full circle thing that I hope felt really good to him. You know,
I mean, I don't know really what to say. I'm kind of out of things to say, but maybe, people were, because it's okay to be lighthearted in this. We were talking about Jerry West. He was getting inducted into the Hall of Fame for the third time, and if you know Jerry West, he want to be inducted
this
again.
Yeah. He was a player, an executive, and he also was part of the 1960 Olympic team.
Gotcha.
Anyway, I'm sure Willie Mays probably wasn't doing well. But it's the timing is could there be perfect timing?
I mean,
in a way, this game tomorrow is almost more impactful because it's going to be linked to his death. It just is.
Yeah, the whole day almost becomes about him.
Yeah.
Which, that's a great thing. I want to certainly acknowledge all of the other players who came through there that are a huge part of this as well. And I hope that doesn't get diminished in some sort of a way because of this. But my goodness, I just got to imagine for all of the people who are going to be there tomorrow, there's so many dignitaries who are going to be there, the living Negro League players who are going to be in the building, who no doubt played against Willie and know Willie and just, the halls that echo through that place with Willie Mays in 1948 and how much of that was all going to be about tomorrow. And now to know that everyone is also celebrating his entire life, I just, I got to think this is going to be overwhelming for some people.
No doubt about it.
So I'm very glad the Giants are there.
Right.
Are going to be there.
And I think that was intentional, not knowing that, Willie was going to pass, but the fact that he is, the greatest living baseball player, or was as of yesterday at this time, and the fact that he played in the Negro Leagues and he played at that field and he's from Alabama, it all seems so perfectly aligned with it's going to be about Willie and everyone else, but now it is more about Willie than it is about everyone else, more so than it would have been based on what happened yesterday.
I mean, one of the things that I've talked about today is the bittersweet part is you learn a lot about Willie Mays on a day like today, or legends when they pass. I had no idea about couldn't buy a house when they moved the team to San Francisco.
Man.
37,000.
But he got the house. He ended up getting it.
Incomprehensible to even me, and I'm older. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can't even imagine if young people think about that. I mean, it's just incomprehensible. And that's where I think Barkley was brought home.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And, Barkley is a full generation ahead of where the players are today, and he's a full probably 2 generations behind Willie Mays and when he played. But Charles Barkley never had to worry about those things like hotel rooms, as he said in his cut. And I'm sure we'll play a little bit later, but just the modern player, I wonder how much appreciation they have for the Barkley generation, let alone 2 generations earlier when it's Willie Mays and Jackie Robinson and Larry Doby and all the rest of them that truly broke through and broke the barrier and were able to make it so that players today, 70 years later, can enjoy the creature comforts that they can.
He played a huge role, and one of all the things that I've read this week, this last 24 hours, one of the things that stood out to me came from Tony Clark, the head of the Players Union, and who is obviously a baseball historian, and many know. I think now, maybe some of you don't know, that there was. There's a little bit of discord at times between Jackie Robinson and Willie Mays because Jackie wanted Willie to be
louder.
Yes, he wanted him to be more, as he put it, on the front lines. And what I think that's done is it's led us down the road where some feel that Willie just didn't want to be a part of it. And I actually don't think that's fully accurate. He just didn't want to sort of tell everybody what he was doing. But he did have a quote years after what Jackie said, calling him out. And he said, I'm very comfortable with what I've done. Yeah. I've just done it without sort of letting everybody know. And getting back to what Tony Clark said, I love this. He said, both men were exactly who we needed them to be. Mm-hmm. Both of them were exactly what this movement needed them to be. They both did it very, very well. And both were a total necessity. So I certainly hope in that piece that I know kind of in the documentary, the idea that Jackie was not thrilled with the way Willie handled it, I hope that doesn't resonate with people into thinking that Willie didn't do a lot.
And he
Willie
spoke
did
on
a
that.
ton. Yes.
I told text Steiny yesterday, I fired up the Say Hey Doc, HBO Max. John Shea, great job. But that hurt him. But he never changed. You would never know that cut him, Dibs. And we had Bomani Jones on earlier. Willie was not at the Cleveland Summit, where Kareem, all the heavyweights were there. He was in his 30s, 35, and Bomani was just making the point at that juncture that was a young man's fight. So Willie wasn't there, but you would never tell. It never changed him, but he heard those words and it hurt him. But I go back to Miramani Drive or wherever he was trying to buy the house here in San Francisco. He kept trying to buy the house and his wife didn't want him to. Right. But I'm like, that's a different type of bravery, putting your neck on the line. Bottles coming through your window at night because they didn't want you there. But he did that. Well, you know what I'm saying? In life, I mean, anything could have happened. But he did that.
But also think about this now, and this is, again, I don't want to there's no disparaging anyone in this kind of a conversation. Jackie Robinson grew up in Southern California and went to UCLA. Willie Mays never went to college and grew up in Alabama. Man. So who do you think, you know what I mean? Like, and I only say that not to, Jackie is Jackie, but I say that to say Willie experienced a lot. Willie was put through a lot. Willie just wasn't the first through the door.
AAA, Trenton, New Jersey. They were calling him N-word left and right.
Jackie was the first through the door. Willie was the third black man to play for the Giants. So there's not that label, but they all experienced this at such a level.
Well, and it's not like
I admire all of them for
when
that.
the first one broke through, it wasn't like, okay, now acceptance for everyone.
Right, not at all.
Still, there had to be a long evolution, and still in this country, unfortunately, we're still fighting with those same issues that Jackie and Willie and Larry Doby and the rest of them had to fight through. And that's, to me, the true tragedy of this country is we are now like almost 80 years removed from Jackie Robinson, and let alone I think it's 180 years or 170 years removed from Juneteenth.
Man.
And yet we're still, the progress we've made as a country is not even anywhere near where it should be with that much time.
Well said.
Well, Jerry West passed a week ago today.
Yep.
And I was just thinking, after doing two of these shows, they had two things in common at least. And one is they were both superstars who weren't necessarily hated by opposing fans. Mm-hmm. There was a respect and an even a like there. It seemed to be. And then the other one that seems to jump out at me is neither of those guys begrudged the younger generation what they never had, whether it was money or the fame or the stardom or the attention. Like both those guys stuck up for this generation when a lot of our generation doesn't really do that.
Willie always carried himself that way, and that's why I go back to the word joy. And I know for a lot of people, you know, going back to the Jackie Robinson thing, that was part of that conversation, which is, you know, don't just sit here and be happy. We've got work to do. But I think that people who carry themselves that way and have that sort of view on life have no choice but to carry themselves that way. Like that was Willie Mays. He was happy. He was good. He was not going to let anybody take his joy. And you can feel that when there's someone like that in the room. You can feel it. You can smell it. You can see it around a corner.
And the exact opposite too, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Of course.
You're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Bob Costas, you guys have coming on at 4.
That's big.
4 o'clock. And Bob,
it's a big boy.
Yeah, well, Bob, one of the dynamics I'd love to dive into today, you know, like this is when I was working down in LA, this was kind of my version of Kobe or Shaq. Like you, even though they were on the same team, you had to kind of pick a side. Were you a Kobe person or a Shaq person? I can't wait to get Bob's perspective on, like his childhood, there was a Mays and Mantle. Like, were you a Mays guy or were you a Mantle guy? And he said, look, he grew up in New York. He was a Yankees fan. It was easy for him to choose who he rooted for more. But what I loved is he's all, but deep down, I knew which one was the better player.
Okay.
I knew, even though I rooted for
to
Mantle,
the core, huh?
I knew Mays was the better player. And obviously there was a race thing there as well for a lot of people, and that and many, many, many other pieces of this. I think Bob will be a wonderful conversation we're looking forward to.
Yeah. All right, guys. I'm going to let you have it right here. I know it's a little early, but take over. I'll tell you what, Guru and I had some incredible calls.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
From people that clearly knew what they were talking about at a time that I can't relate to. So I learned a lot today. So thank you to the listeners who called in and educated me.
Where did you learn so much?
You know what? Thanks, Dibs.
You're welcome.
It is okay to smile on a day like today,
it is.
Especially if you're on 95.7 The Game.